Apilgrimageforbrianhaw, Spiritual Journey of Relevance, from the ruins of Barking Abbey to Canterbury Cathedral, by Lee D. Miller. That's me. Right, day 7, Friday the 1st of July 2011. When I awoke, it was another beautiful morning, and I had the sensation of feeling so very lucky with the weather that had been gifted to me throughout my journey, even if it was a touch too hot. It was around 8 o'clock and I was pleased to discover that there was no one around. I had the summit of the hill to myself, and it was lovely sitting there in the morning sunshine waiting for my water to boil as I implemented my morning routine. The top of the hill was mainly grassed over, and the area around me was backed by brambles. Just in front of me the hill sloped down with paths meandering through partial scrub and woodland, and I was happy taking in the view. After extended breakfast period, I was on the road by 9, and as I left the confines of the park area, I saw a sign by the gate. The area I'd spent the night in was under the care of the National Trust, and it was called Golden Hill. What a nice touch, I thought, as I smiled and continued to follow the North Downs Way into the suburban landscape. The path immediately enters a residential area leading to a main road, which then leads down the hill to meet the busy dual carriageway, which is the A2. The A2 in turn leads directly into Canterbury or directly to London, depending on which way you go. As I reached the bottom of the hill and turned right to look towards the city of Canterbury itself, I got my very first view of Canterbury Cathedral. It was unmissable, and stood proud overlooking the city at what seemed like the end of the road I was now on. I was almost there. Not too far now, I thought to myself, but again, it was a strange sensation I was experiencing. Although I felt happy, I did not feel an overwhelming sense of joy, and as I carried on walking towards the centre of Canterbury with the cathedral in my permanent line of sight, I suddenly had another strange impression and realisation. The top of the cathedral, and from the distance I was away, looked ever so much like the Masonic hand gesture for the devil. And I then recalled that I had just walked from the ruins of Barking Abbey, which was built in 666 AD. The number that represent the beast, the mark of the beast. Asterisks. Since the undertaking of my pilgrimage, I have wondered with great intrigue why St Erkenwald would construct his Benedictine Abbey in a year marked by a number which supposedly represented negative forces. If that number had such evil connotations, why do that? Why not wait for a few months until the year 667 before starting the foundation of the Abbey? Perhaps it was just convenient timing and there is no relevance to the year of the Abbey's construction. But say if there is, what if the number 666 represented something other than the mark of the beast? What if it was symbolic of something else? Considering the Benedictines were initiates into the knowledge of earth energy, these questions raised themselves to me, and so I investigated the possibility of other connections to the number 666. Carbon is essential to life on Earth, and I was interested to find that a carbon atom is comprised of 6 protons, 6 neutrons and 6 electrons. Could this fact be significant to the number symbolism? That's life itself. And I've got to say as well, on that note, the beast desires to control life. Maybe that's what the symbolism is, you know? It's interesting about your carbon footprint though. Want to reduce that, it means you want to reduce life, doesn't it? If you look into the symbolism, if you see it through. Hey, just saying, just saying. Anyway, I'll carry on. Actually, I then had a little smile to myself because I thought, you know what, the devil ain't no match for love, mate. And I left with love, and I'm bringing love. And if the devil's around these parts today, then he's going to get some love because he needs it. Much love all over. And I smiled to myself some more. I walked on a bit further, and as I came to a spot where I had a good view of Canterbury Cathedral and by a line of trees to my right, I had an overwhelming feeling that I wanted to repeat my affirmation again. And I stopped to take off my backpack. I repeated the reason for which I had undertaken my pilgrimage, and then I remembered Brian Haw by saying a prayer and thanking him again for everything he had done. After I'd finished my prayer, I remained standing and continued to focus my attention on the cathedral as I continued in my remembrance. Cars continued to whiz by the side of me on the former Roman road, which was now the A2, as they negotiated their way through the last moments of the morning rush hour. Some cars even appeared to slow as the drivers witnessed a very peculiar man seemingly gazing into oblivion. I didn't care what I looked like to them or to other people though, I just gave my full attention and appreciation to the moment. I then lifted my backpack once more and resumed on my way. From that point on, I lost track of the North Downs Way signs and re-engaged the old Anglo-Saxon orienteering tactic of just following my nose. I crossed a river and then saw a beautiful park to the right of me and decided to enter it after noticing a cycle path sign which directed to the city centre. I followed it to the sign of another waterway. I followed it to the side of another waterway and through a small tunnel underneath a roadway and continued along the street until I came upon the site of Canterbury Castle. It was quite an impressive spectacle, Canterbury Castle, and I thought it'll be a nice place to sit and have lunch later on if need be. By the side of the ruined castle lay Castle Street, and the road appeared to lead directly towards the cathedral itself, and so I followed it in. It was wonderful to be finally walking along the ancient streets of Canterbury. The place still had a very middle-aged charm about it, and as I was approaching the cathedral at a time of just before 11 o'clock, the city had a feeling of just getting ready to get into its full stride as the tourists were beginning to turn up. Castle Street led me directly to the main high street, whereby I reached the junction it had with the quaint and tiny medieval road called Nursery Lane. It was beautiful reaching that point in the morning sunshine, because as I looked further down the lane I could see ever so clearly the gates of Canterbury Cathedral. I was there. I stopped to appreciate the moment some more and looked around to observe my immediate vicinity. I then noticed something else. The corner of the road, as it joined to the high street, housed a bank whose logo incorporated a black horse. How appropriate is that to my pilgrimage, I thought. But that was not all. Attached to the side of the building's exterior was another sign which designated the name of the road I had just traversed and which had led me straight on from Castle Street, and its name was St Margaret Street. Nice touch, I thought, of all the roads that I could have approached from, and I smiled. St Margaret's Church, isn't it? Is that right? I entered Nursery Lane and followed the old road to the little square on Sun Street and looked in awe upon the ancient cathedral gates. What a sight to behold at the end of a pilgrimage. I could only wonder what the sensation might have been like for pilgrims in times long past who encountered the sight after journeying through nothing but forest and woodland, and who may have never seen a structure of the size and of the beauty of the gates of Canterbury Cathedral. Even in the modern age, and for some like myself, the vista felt magical and inspiring. I've been thinking during the last stages of my walk of what I was going to say at the entrance of the cathedral in order to gain admission. I knew that because of the tourist industry there was a sizable entrance fee, but there was absolutely no way that I thought that the cathedral could expect me to pay that. Not only because I was on a pilgrimage, but also because of the reasons for my pilgrimage. And so, as I approached the main gate, I wondered what my reception would be. I saw an attendant by the swinging gate, which was adjacent to the queue full of tourists waiting to pay their entrance fee, and explained, "Excuse me, sir, I'm just completing a pilgrimage from the ruins of Barking Abbey, and I wondered if I may pass to say a prayer in the crypt," I asked. "Oh, no problem," he replied, and he then immediately opened the swing gate in order to let me pass. Blimey, that wasn't too bad. Just how it should be, I thought. Right, I'm going to leave that one there. Thank you, Brian. I think it's appropriate. That's enough.